This is the absence of a quorum. The Sergeant at Arms will prepare the chamber and bring in the absent members. The clerk will call the roll.
Ashajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berryhill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Conway, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Ing, Fior, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gatto, Gordon, Gurrell, Grove, Hagman, Halderman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Weso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Bansor, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Nistande, Nilsson, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
A quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, we all have three types of memory: DNA memory, cerebral memory, and the memory of the heart, which is the center of our self-awareness and the place where we relate to you. If we're not careful, when we concentrate on our jobs, our house, and our family every day, those things can crowd you right out of our life. Help us to keep the memory of you in our heart today, Lord. Give us a sense of living as if you were always near us and present in all the things around us. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing for the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Amiano as he leads us in the pledge. Mr. Amiano. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Monday, June 20th, 2011. Assembly met at 12 noon. Honorable Fiona Moss, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly, presiding. Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clerk Timothy Moreland. Reading the roll was called as Shajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berryhill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, CDO,
Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions, the absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly members Allen, Block, and Solorio to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection?
Also, I would like to request the same rule, 45.5, to allow Assembly member Nastanti to speak on adjourn in memory.
Without objection?
Pursuant to Assembly Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer the following bills to committee. SB 50 from Elections and Redistricting Committee to the Rules Committee. SB 436 from the Natural Resources Committee to Local Government Committee and then back to the Natural Resources Committee. SB 619 from the Higher Education Committee to Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection Committee and then back to Higher Education. SB 843 from the Veterans Affairs Committee to the Rules Committee, and SB 245 from the Housing and Community Development Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection, except for SB 245, we have to adopt the second reading calendar first.
Well, I thought second. All right, we'll do that after second reading. That's scratched out. And then also, request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62A. File notice, and Assembly Rule 56 to allow Judiciary Committee to hear SB 595 on Tuesday, June 28th at 9 a.m. in Room 4202, pending re-referral from the Natural Resources Committee.
Without objection?
Also, request unanimous consent to suspend Rule 56 so that the Local Government Committee can notice SB 152 by Ms. Pavley for hearing on Wednesday, June 29th, pending re-referral from the Natural Resources Committee.
Without objection?
Also, request unanimous consent to recall AB 1410 bill by Assembly Jobs Committee from engrossing and enrolling and to return it to the Senate for further action.
Without objection,
and
clerk will
then
note.
finally, I request unanimous consent to allow Mr. Berryhill to print a letter in the Journal relative to AB 844, chaptered as 731 statutes of 2008.
Without objection, clerk will note. Can we have some guests in the gallery and in the chamber today? Mr. Chesbro, would you like to introduce your guests? Okay, Mr. Allen, your guests. Okay, Mr. Allen at Mr. Speaker's desk.
Madam Speaker and members, I ask all of you to join me in welcoming the 2011 California Community College Athletic Association Women's State Championship basketball team from Santa Rosa Junior College. On March 13th, the Bear Cubs defeated the tournament's top-seeded team, the City College of San Francisco, to win their first state title in 23 years. Mio Greco was named Most Valuable Player, and the Bear Cubs finished the season with a record of 28-6. I also want to note that today, on June 23rd, is the anniversary of Title IX of the Civil Rights Act, which, while designed to eliminate discrimination in education, also has contributed over the years to a large increase in the number of women participating in high school and college athletics. Please join me in congratulating all the athletes who contribute to this great effort, along with head coach Lacey Campbell and her assistant athletic director Jim Forkham and the rest of the SRJC community.
Okay, Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very pleased this morning to introduce to you, colleagues, AmeriCorps Community Health Corps volunteers who are sponsored by the Alliance for Rural Community Health. There are 22 members stationed in communities in Mendocino, Sonoma, and Lake counties. The members work on a variety of projects, including childhood obesity programs, reproductive health, senior health, oral health education, teen health, chronic disease management, patient navigation, nutrition education, and other very, very important rural health issues. There are 22 of them, so I'm not going to introduce all of them individually, but I want to thank them for their effort on behalf of rural California, helping us to provide health care in places where it's really, really difficult. We really appreciate all of your good work. Please join me in welcoming them.
Okay, business on the daily file. Second reading, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 582, 33, 448, 88 with amendments, 139 with amendments, 914, 430, 931, 866 with amendments, 774 with amendments, 8 with amendments, 650 with amendments, 425 with amendments, and Senate Bill 220.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Okay, we are going to go to the concurrence file. Items on the concurrence file. File item 15. AB 167, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 167 by Assemblymember Cook and others, an act relating to the California Stolen Valor Act.
Colonel Cook.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's appropriate that I ask for your vote on the bill that I'm going to describe. It's AB 167, and it's appropriate because yesterday our Speaker, John Perez, our Madam Speaker, and many of the people here in this room, we honored our veterans. It was a veterans tribute. And this bill relates to a bill that I authored in 2007, which prohibited individuals with the intent to defraud from falsely claiming to have earned military awards or declarations. This year, I've authored 167, which will name the established law, the California Stolen Valor Act. The bill will force elected officials to forfeit their office if they are convicted under this law. Under current law, an elected official must be convicted under the Federal Stolen Valor Act in order to be forced to vacate the office. But the Federal Stolen Valor Act has been declared unconstitutional due to First Amendment issues. This is due to the fact that the federal law does not include the intent to defraud provision. Misrepresenting one's military record to defraud others is reprehensible. Due to the decision in the federal court, our state law lacks consequences for elected officials who dishonor our service members by trying to benefit unjustly from these sacrifices. This will now require elected officials found guilty under the state law to forfeit their office. We've had tremendous bipartisan support. We've had it's back after technical amendments, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, going to the third reading file. File item 21, ACA 19 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Assembly Constitutional Amendment 19 with amendments by Assemblymember Allen.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and fellow members, these are on the amendments. I've been working with members of my own caucus and with the members of the Republican caucus, our colleagues. These are amendments to clarify that when the constitutional amendment is presented by indirect initiative process, that the amendments can only be done with the consent of the proponent or by a majority of the proponents. It also clarifies that the deadline for the legislature to act on the initiative measure is on the 131st day. So these are clarifications, just trying to make this clear that with the initiative process, it always remains in the control of the proponents. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, and without objection, we will take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. File item 25, ACR 64. Clerk will read.
Assembly concur Resolution 64 by Assemblymember Valadao relative to the June Dairy Month in California.
Mr. Valadao.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. ACR 64 is a resolution that declares June as Dairy Month in California. June Dairy Month was originally known as National Milk Month and has been an annual tradition since 1937. California produces 21% of the nation's milk supply and continues to be the leading state in agriculture production for over 50 years, with milk and cream contributing $5.9 billion to our economy in 2010. With only 30% of Americans meeting their recommended intake of calcium, ACR 64 encourages Californians to include dairy as part of a healthy diet. Dairy foods play an important role in helping to reduce osteoporosis, hypertension, obesity, colon cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. These foods provide an essential nutrients, including 75% of the calcium naturally available in the food supply. Milk is also the #1 source of potassium, phosphorus, and vitamin D in the American diet. It is also estimated that the dairy industry accounts for less than 2% of the total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions and continues working to reduce those emissions. This resolution is a great opportunity for Californians to honor the work of dairy producers in California and to support the American dairy industry by recognizing the importance of dairy products to our economy and as part of a healthy diet. Madam Speaker, I would like to ask for the first roll to be open for co-authors.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Valadao is asking for the first roll to be open to co-authors. First roll, co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is for co-authors. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. For the record, there are 63 co-authors. We could take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 29, SB 279. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 279 by Senator Emerson, an act relating to business.
Colonel Cook.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When an owner of a public storage facility enforces a lien on an occupant's property, the owner is required to provide public notice to the community of the upcoming lien sale. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Existing law requires the owner to advertise in a newspaper of general circulation that is published in the county where the lien sale is to be held. This is a cleanup measure to AB 655, which was passed in 2010, that would correct the provision and require that the lien sale be advertised in a newspaper of general circulation in the judicial district where the sale is held. When the legislature consolidated the courts in early 1990s, it kept judicial districts in place for the sole purpose of providing public notices in newspapers. This would make the law consistent with prior legislation intent to preserve historical judicial districts for public notices. Senator Emerson's bill has received unanimous support throughout the legislative process so far, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. Mr. Hueso. File item 30, SB 291. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 291 by Senator Vargas, an act relating to bill.
Mr. Hueso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I present SB 291. This bill would require that after a fugitive has been brought back to the state by extradition proceedings, the person shall be committed to the county jail with the bail set in the amount of $100,000 in addition to the amount of bail appearing on the warrant. In addition, SB 291 would require that a noticed bail hearing take place prior to deviating from the proposed bail amount of $100,000. Under existing law, criminal defendants extradited back to California may bail out prior to appearing before a judge. Sometimes these defendants become fugitives a second time, leaving California with the tax bill of requiring them to be extradited back to California. SB 291 will discourage the practice of jumping bail and will save taxpayer dollars by dramatically reducing the number of times our counties pay thousands and thousands of dollars to chase down and extradite fugitives in other states. This bill would also provide district attorneys the opportunity to provide any additional information that should be considered before deviating from the proposed bail amount. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 57, noes 3. Measure passes. File item 37, SB 101. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 101 by Senator Corbett, an act relating to professions and vocations.
Support. Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This is a non-controversial bill. It had a 36-0 vote in the Senate and in 2 Assembly committees, had unanimous support. It has no opposition. The bill simply updates the Miller-Ayala Athlete Agent Act when it comes to conflict of interest provisions. It clarifies relationships among teams, talent agencies, and leagues when it comes to things like sponsorship agreements and endorsements. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 62, no 0. Measure passes. And file item 39, SB 150. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 150 by Senator Correa and others, an act relating to common interest developments.
Support. Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 150 is a straightforward bill. Protects CID unit owners to rent their unit if such a right existed at the time they purchased it. This is a bill that I ran last year. It has received no votes, and I request your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Just a very quick request to suspend Assembly Rule 118 to allow Assemblymember Harkey to have a guest at her desk on the floor.
Without objection. Okay, without objection, SB 245 by Mr. Rubio from the Housing and Community Development Committee to the Rules Committee. Without objection. Mr. Calderon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer SB 542 from Business, Professions and Consumer Protection Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Also, request to send SB 245 from Housing and Community Development Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
And finally, request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62A to allow Insurance Committee to meet and to hear SB 684 on Monday, June 27th, upon adjournment of session in the Rules Committee room.
Without objection. Okay, Mr. Solorio, would you like to introduce your guests? Mr. Solorio, members in the back of the room.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the co-chair of the Legislative Animal Protection Caucus, along with fellow co-chair Cameron Smythe, I am pleased to welcome to our state capitol Wayne Pacelle, President and CEO of the Humane Society of the United States. The Humane Society is the nation's largest animal protection organization with more than 1.3 million supporters just here in California alone. Mr. Pacelle is here as part of a 100-city national tour for his new book on the New York Times bestseller list, The Bond, Our Kinship with Animals, Our Call to Defend Them. In his book, Mr. Pacelle calls on the nation to build a new humane economy, one that allows for robust economic growth and jobs, but one that also reflects on our best values and our common commitment to protect animals. We can do no less. So please join me in welcoming and honoring one of America's most important champions of animal welfare, Wayne Pacelle.
Okay, members, we're at the consent calendar, second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 426 by Senator Calderon, an act relating to nuisance.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. It's on the consent calendar. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 66, no 0.
And Senate Bill 288.
Ayes 66, no 0. The session schedule is as follows. Friday, June 24th, no floor session, no check-in session. Monday, June 27th, floor session at 12 noon. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. There will be a Democratic caucus upon adjournment in the members' lounge. Democratic caucus upon adjournment in the members' lounge. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Allen moves, Ms. Conway seconds, that this House stands adjourned until Monday, June 27th at 12 noon. Quorum calls lifted.